What's up, everybody out there on YouTube? So today on Instagram I got a request from somebody to do a sizing video to show you guys how to size your helmets. So what I did is I opened up two Power Rangers helmets here, the blue Mighty Morphin Power Ranger and the Psycho Ranger. That's the wrong one. I didn't want to open that one, so we'll go back up the front. Alright, now I've already done a video showing you guys how to make these solid in Mesh Mixer, so I'm going to skip over that part during this video, but I will mention it when we get to that part. But basically I'm going to be showing you guys how to size your prints. Now, one of the cool things about cosplay helmets is if you get a full one. Those are my favorite to size because you can measure your head and then kind of adjust the measurements on here, and you have one solid area that you can kind of test print and get a good measurement on. But some people have a little bit of difficulty when it comes to helmets that are already pre-halved. So this one, what I usually do when I print it is I go ahead and plane cut wherever I want it. I size the whole entire thing to my head, and then I just cut the seam where it breaks in half where I want to cut it. So it's a little easier whenever you do a full helmet, like a Clone Trooper or Stormtrooper or Darth Vader, or the list goes on, Iron Man, all these different helmets. In fact, Power Rangers are like the only ones that split in half, unless you kind of do it yourself and split one of these helmets in half. So I think what some people are having trouble with is the Power Rangers where you have half and half. So I'm going to kind of show you guys what I do when it comes to that. And basically we're going to show you the full helmet first, and this can apply to any other helmet, and then we'll show you how I do it on the halved helmet. It's very, very simple. So basically the first thing that I'm going to point you at, and I point everybody else at, is this video right here. This is by Uncle Jesse. If you're into 3D printing and stuff, everybody knows this video, and he mentions Nico Industries in this video. So it initially was done by Nico Industries. Jesse picked it up and created his own calipers for it that you can print off yourself. And if you have any cubic i3 Mega, something like really small, you can print this, but you have to make it just a tad bit smaller, and you have to go crossways, and it'll still work for you. If you have something with a bigger bed than a cubic i3 Mega, which is 211 millimeters square, if you have something bigger than that, then you can typically print these off. I think he prints this off on a CR10 or something like that. These are really good calipers to get, and he even shows you how you go about measuring your head in this video. So I would suggest, there's the Nico Industries there. I would suggest you watch this video. Cosplay calipers, easy way to scale helmets, armor, and you can scale body pieces too with this. You can go elbow to wrist, chest across, and the fact that these are so big, and you can print them off bigger if you have a bigger printer, you can just get better measurements and stuff. So what I typically do is I go in, I have some calipers like this. I don't always use calipers. Sometimes, honestly, you can get two sticks and angle them. You just have to kind of tie the end off, angle them, and put it up to you somehow. Like if I can't find the calipers, I know how to do it with other things. You just want that space between. You want to be able to measure a round area side to side, and you want that space between, and you can take a measuring tape and go from point to point and get that distance measurement out. With these calipers, I think he shows in this video, you kind of push them up and get the exact measurements of your head. But you've got to understand that if you use the calipers and you get the exact measurements of your head, and then you go back into your helmet and you put the exact measurements into the scaling here, the helmet's going to be too small, because you got to think of the amount of plastic that's going to be on here. Now some of these helmets up to like an inch, maybe 2 inches wide wall, and so actually the space in the middle is a little bit smaller, and so it's going to be either really, really snug on your head, or it's just not going to fit at all. So you can't put exact measurements in there. And so what I like to do is go in, you get the calipers, and what you want to do is you go and you measure out your head across at your biggest point. So I put on a little bit extra for ears. So your ears are typically one of those things that they'll bend back, they'll be fine. They're pretty malleable, but I still want to give it a little bit of room so it's not uncomfortable. So I don't go from this point here to this point here. I try to give a little bit of extra, and you can kind of take the calipers and put them up to the side of your face and run it up and down the side to see if it runs over the top of your ears and how much your ears go back. And that's okay. You can do something like that and then get a measurement on that. Get your measurement top to bottom and get your widest area front to back. And that's going to be the exact measurements you need. And if you need to know how, if you're in America and you need to know how to take those, because everything, all these programs, all the 3D printing programs and stuff are in millimeters. So if you want to learn how to take that from inches to millimeters, you just go and you can just type it right in. Like all I did is say my head is 9.5 inches across. You know, I can say inches to millimeters, just put it in the top bar and it automatically pops up this generator here, and then you can put in the rest of it, the rest of your measurements here, and get your exact measurements in millimeters. But what I do, because you have 3D printed walls, you have the plastic area, you don't know how thick it's going to be just by looking at it all the time. You can take this into Mesh Mixer, and there's a way that you can take it into Mesh Mixer and get the exact measurements of the inside of a helmet. For some odd reason, my Mesh Mixer has been messing up, and it just won't let me do it. I talked to somebody the other day on Instagram, and they were asking me questions about Mesh Mixer. And I was just kind of letting them know, Mesh Mixer is kind of one of those fickle programs. Sometimes it lets you do things, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it glitches out, sometimes it doesn't. It's a free program, and you get what you pay for. In any sense, in any place in the world, anything that you get what you pay for. So if you're going to pay nothing for something, I wouldn't expect the greatest program on the face of the earth and for it to work 100% of the time. Some free programs do. Some of them don't. There's a program called Blender that's absolutely free. It's a 3D printing. You can build 3D prints, do all that different stuff. I've been trying to learn how to use it. It's very, very technical. But it's an amazing program, and it's free, and I haven't had any problems with it messing up. But for the most part, free programs typically have glitches and things in it. And I don't know how much trouble anybody else has had with Mesh Mixer. But just to stress, it is a free program. So I'm making this video in a sense of that we don't have the application to measure the inside of a helmet. If you kind of understand that. So what I do, because if you can't measure the inside of a helmet, you're going to have to just add some wall density to it. And so what I usually do is I give about an inch, maybe an inch and a half for the walls. Typically, the walls don't go bigger than that. And that's, you know, typically. So I don't just add an inch to what I'm doing. I actually add about 3 inches, because you don't want it to even be slightly snug. The bigger the better. A bigger helmet, you can add more padding in. It's going to be more comfortable. You're going to have more room to breathe. If you add breathing vents and stuff, ventilation, the air is going to escape a little bit better. The tighter the helmet is on your head, the more that hot air gets trapped in front of your face and it goes up and fogs up the visor. And the less padding you can put into it, so the more uncomfortable it can get. So don't worry about the helmet being too big. 2, 3, 4, even 5 inches extra added on to each measurement isn't going to make the helmet so big that it looks ungodly or way to make you look like you have a way big head. It's not going to happen. That's not big enough. If you add if you want to put really, really thick, like the thickest foam Hobby Lobby has in it, and add 10 inches to your measurements, then it's going to start looking ungodly. But, you know, 2 to 3 inches added to each measurement that you have should be perfectly fine. And that's typically what I do. So if my head's 9 inches, let's say 9 inches wide, I'm guessing on these numbers because I have them saved somewhere, but I know it's around 9 inches long. I think the longest point. And so instead of putting 9 inches in there, I'll just add, you know, 2 to 3 and just put 12 and that's going to be my measurement. And so I'll just take that, copy it, come over here to the main thing, and we're doing front to back here. And I'll just do this. And what you can do is you can do uniform scaling, paste that in there, and it's going to adjust all the rest of them. That way the helmet still looks perfectly fine. It looks exactly the way it's going to look. And sometimes your other measurements, you'll see your other measurements will be right within this vicinity, and you'll go, all right, that should be good. You know, sometimes it won't though. Sometimes you can get a skinny helmet and you just need to put a little bit more room on the outside or something like that. So maybe you have a fatter head wide than you do long or something. Everybody has a different shaped head. But this is typically what I do. I just get my biggest measurement, which is usually this way, and I put it into here and then uniform scale the rest of it. And it typically works for me because I've got just a natural sized head, to be honest with you. Some people don't. So what you can do is you can go into this uniform here, unclick it to where it doesn't have the check mark in it anymore. Now, let's say you're going wide and you've got 8 inches wide, so you add 3 to the 8 inches and you have 11 inches here. So now you have 274.4, and you want to get that exactly right. So wide is your X, 274 or 79. Now that widens the helmet up there, and you can make every measurement here the way that you want to do it. Okay? So now once you get done with this, the size that you want it, let's just say that this is the exact size that we want it here. You can see that it doesn't fit on our printer bed, but that doesn't matter. It really doesn't at this moment because we can still save it as an STL from here. So you just go to File and Export, and then you save it as an STL file here. And you can name it whatever you want to name it, and then save it. And then I'm not going to save this one because it's just all jacked up. From this point, you have the right size of a full helmet. Now you can take it in. I've got videos on this, so if you guys want to check those out, just leave a comment. I'll give you guys the link or something. You can go into Mesh Mixer and do your plane cutting all across. And what I would do is just take, let's say you plane cut it here in the middle, and then the top comes out into 4 different pieces. What I would do is just set 1, 2, 3, and 4 pieces up into one print. If you can fit them all in. If you can't, it doesn't matter. It's not going to take that long. You can do one print at a time. But just leave it on, put it on, start it, let it go for about 15 minutes, and then stop the print. Let the next one go for about 15 minutes, stop the print, and then the next one, and then the next one, until you get that full round. Just a full round, so you know exactly how wide it's going to be at your widest point. And then take that off the printer, glue the pieces together, or tape them together, whatever you want, and then see if they slide over the top of your head. You'll just have a round piece that you can just slide over the top of your head. And if it doesn't fit, if you need it a little bit bigger or something, you can just come back in here and adjust it. You haven't wasted any plastic, you haven't built the entire thing, you haven't printed any full pieces or anything like that. You've only used a small amount of plastic just to get the right size. And once you get that size down, you'll be perfectly fine after that. And that's it. That's it on that. And that's a full helmet. So what I typically do when it goes to a half a helmet is what you would do, and it's kind of a little bit tricky, I guess. It's kind of the same concept. What I would typically do if you're going to do a half helmet is you get this wide across here. So we've got our half helmet here. You measure your longest width across here. You put the extra inches on it, and then let's just use this one here across, and use the uniform scaling. Copy. just leave the uniform checked and do that across. You see how it says 122.55? Open up your back one, and now leaving the uniform scaling on, copy this 122.55 across onto the other one. Do the same thing that we did. Slice this if you have a smaller printer. If you don't, just, you know, kind of slice it, plane cut it in its widest area. Ooh. Do we have an undo? Yeah. Plane cut it in your widest area that you can find. And if you have a big enough printer, do front and back if you want to. If you don't have a big enough printer, break it up into smaller pieces like the other one. Get your back open, this one open. Print, say you split this into 4 pieces and it's split crossways at your widest point here. Take this piece, print it for about 10 minutes. Take this piece, print it for about 10 minutes. Take the top piece of your back part, print it for 10 minutes. Take that one, print it for 10 minutes. Tape all those pieces together, put them over your head. And you can kind of see from there, you can see just how much you might want to adjust the front, just how much you might want to adjust the back. And when it's half and half like this, I would suggest that you try to keep as much uniform scaling as possible and focus on the percentages, because you're going to want to match this here up with this here. So this is way different than just blowing the whole thing up huge and cutting your own half in it. You have to make sure that this continues to match. So your up and down and your side to side have to be the same percentage. They just have to be, because that's the only way that you're going to match this point with this point across to this point and down to this point. That's the only way that you're going to match the back to the front. You have to keep this percentage and this percentage exactly the same on both. And that's how you can match up the front and back. But you can definitely get it wider. You can definitely get it longer. Just as if the front's a certain width and a certain height, you have to take the percentage from the width and height on this side, open up the back piece, and you have to copy and paste that over there. You can take off the uniform scaling and do like 100 here, make it shorter, you know, and then just say you don't want to make this longer, you want to make the back bigger, because sometimes like Anarchy Cosplay, a lot of times they'll do their 2 different halves, and the way that they size it is they just make the back bigger, they make it go back out. That's not they don't 3D print, but they have molds, and they mold the front, and they have different size molds in the back. I think it's Anarchy that does that. I can't remember exactly who does that, but they just make the back bigger. And so you can have this at 100, and then for the back piece put it at 200 and make it way big. As long as your Z and Y stay at, they don't have to be the same percentage of each other, but they have to be the same percentage as the back piece. So this one can be 150 and this one can be 130. Now your back piece has to be 130 here and 150 here. So just make sure that you're keeping that so you guys can match that spot up there. And that's about it. So it's a lot better if you have a bigger helmet. A lot better if you have a bigger helmet. But once you start doing this, actually, the halves are fairly easy to do. They really are. And I would suggest to anybody out there, don't start with a half helmet. Start making a full helmet and get that full helmet correct. Print it out. You know, get you a cheap helmet or something off Thingiverse that's, well, not cheap, that's free. It's just maybe cheaply made, a thin print or something like that. And break it into pieces on Mesh Mixer. If you need the video for that, just ask me. I'll give you the link. I'm probably not going to put it in the description, but if you leave a comment, I'll definitely give you the link. Take it into Mesh Mixer, make it a solid piece. That way it prints. Sometimes those Thingiverse free prints don't print. Sometimes they're not even STLs, but you can import any of those files into Mesh Mixer and export them into an STL. So, but you got to go in there, you got to make it solid, accuracy, turn their accuracy on instead of fast. You can make it thicker if you want to, and then save that off into here and find your measurements using a full helmet. And once you get that full helmet, it'll translate over to this half a helmet fairly easily. And you'll really start to understand it. This is one of those things when you're making big cosplay helmets, you kind of just want to play around with it. Really take your time the first helmet that you do to get those measurements right so it fits you, because there's nothing more frustrating than printing an entire helmet thinking you have the measurements correctly, and then getting excited, painting it, primering it, doing all this different stuff, can't wait to put it on. You put all this hard work into it, and all of a sudden you try to put it on and it doesn't fit. There's nothing more frustrating to any cosplayer than doing that and having to start all over, especially if it's like your dream helmet. Maybe you went to DO 3D and spent $60, $70 on a quality print, or $100 on a quality print, or something like that, and it takes all this time, because DO 3D doesn't joke around. They make their print walls thick. Their prints are amazing, so I mean, they don't play around. Some of the best prints that you can get are DO 3D prints, and they take a while to print because they're so good, and they bend in all the right places. You can, of course, you can plane cut them and cut down your time you can cut down your time on printing by cutting them certain ways to where you have less support generated, or you can print it as a big whole thing or something like that, and it's just going to take days to print. But these helmets, if you're printing it on one big CR10 or something like that, if you're printing one helmet on one CR10 or something bigger than that, then it's going to take you some time to get that thing printed, especially if you're printing it on like fine, like your profile setting here. If you're using Cura, extra fine or something like that, it's going to take you days to print it, and that sucks. It really does, to get it off and it just not to print. So play around with it, chop your thing up, plane cut it at the widest part, or at a part where you really want to get measured, and just print that piece for a couple minutes, print the next piece for a couple minutes, get that thing all the way to where it wraps around your head, and just make adjustments to it. And then it may take a whole day to do it. Heck, it may take like 2 days to get that initial one done. But believe me, the time that it will take you to get your measurements correct and right, and then before you print it, it's going to save you that much more time on the rest of your helmets, because you don't want to guess and just print a small helmet, and then you've wasted all that time printing the small helmet that you can't wear. So you just kind of guess on the next one and add a little bit more to it, just kind of guessing. Millimeters are tiny, so since everything's in millimeters, it may look to you like you're adjusting it by a huge measure. If you're American and you don't know much about millimeters, it may look like you're adjusting it by a huge measure, but it's not, because millimeters are nowhere close to inches and stuff. I mean, once you start going in inches, like you can see the difference here on Google. I mean, 11 inches is 279.4 millimeters. So you may go, oh, it's just a little bit tight. Instead of 279, I'm going to put it at 290. Look, that's not even another inch. So, I mean, you could be thinking you're adjusting it by a lot, not just adjusting it by much at all. And it can look false when it comes to here. Like let's do something that you're going to notice right here across. So it's at 200. We're going to do 220. Okay. Look at the big adjustment that it looked like it made. Okay. Let's do 200. 787. 866. I mean, it's not even an inch, but it looks like a big adjustment on here. So you don't want to eyeball it. You just don't want to eyeball it. Get you measurements, get you solid measurements, get you a game plan, measure out a few pieces, get that ring around your head so you can get that good measurement out, and then print those. Take the time to print those pieces off, and then you're never going to have a bad helmet after that. Every one of your helmets is going to fit you. I promise you, they're all going to fit you as long as you keep those rules in mind when you're printing half and halves, and you're going to definitely get all of your full helmets correct. Once you get one full helmet right, you can basically make all of those to that one type of helmet. You can look at it. Sometimes a helmet will have a bigger space in a certain area, like your nose area. It'll have a bigger frontal part, and it'll be skinnier or something, and you'll be able to see it and kind of just make the adjustments, because sometimes just the structure of the helmet will make it look like it's thicker, because you got to understand that when you're measuring, it's measuring from your biggest point out here to your furthest out point there. So it's measuring from here to here, and your forehead's going to be right about here. Get how that happens? So if you have a helmet that has a front part that comes way out, it's going to measure from this front part all the way back. So you need to make some adjustments for that. And that's why just doing a big ring around your head first to make sure that the measurements are correct. That's the best possible thing that you can do. Anyways, hopefully this has been helpful for some people. And if you have any questions, make sure the link is in the description to my Instagram. If you guys want to go to Instagram, shoot me a message. If you guys want a commission done or something like that, shoot me a message. I've been having fun. I've been spending day after day talking with people on Instagram. For some reason, I only have a little bit over 100 followers on Instagram, but I seem to have way more people trying to chat me up in messaging because everybody has a question about 3D printing. But if you're following me on Instagram, make sure that you subscribe to me on YouTube, and vice versa. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to me, follow me on Instagram. And let's just have some fun with it. I enjoy talking to every single one of you guys, and like this video and like a previous video that I did for someone else, if you guys send me messages, if you guys ask questions, if you guys ask for a specific video to be made, typically I do it. So I appreciate everybody. I appreciate the comments and stuff. I'm Bryson Michael RC. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys later.